Well, it's very rewarding to see people that basically are on very limited income begin their lives, and I don't think they'd have the opportunity to do this if it wasn't for the self-help program. You see people with a low income that just can't get started, and they're going to be trapped in a rent their whole lives because they never get that opportunity to step up the ladder. And with self-help, they're doing all the grunt work, but in the end they still have a nice equity when they move into those homes, so it's really good to see.
And do you want...
No, like I say, the only thing that I might like to see is, if I don't know a lot about the financing and how that works, but I think there's a lot of good people out there that are on the break where they've got mediocre jobs and they don't quite qualify for this program, but to borrow money for a conventional loan and get into a $200,000 valued house, they just can't afford those payments. So there's a market there that's trapped, that just can't seem to get, that they're not low income that qualify for this project, but on the other hand they can't buy a ranch with a garage or whatever to get into because their income's just in the middle there. So I think there's still some market there that's trapped that can't qualify for this program, which I'd like to see maybe go up a little bit. But I don't know how the system all works financially, so I don't know how that works. But I know the cost of our materials have gone up tremendously, and I know the income levels for people haven't gone up at the rate of inflation. So that's why I'm wondering if we can't get people, you know, a little bit higher income into this program, because it's just, we're not keeping up with the rate of inflation and be able to keep our program going. So
this one back on.
Go there.
Yeah.
You know, if the government's going to be involved in our lives and dictate everything, or a lot of the things that we do, and they need to help us get started. And once we get started, we can prosper on our own. If you give a guy $1 million and say, see what you can do with it, I bet 9 out of 10 of them will do good with that $1 million. It'll only be, you know, one portion of that would lose the money and not. If you gave me $1 million, I'd like to see what I could turn it into. But if you never had that opportunity, you're always going to wonder if your whole life, and you're going to be trapped in this little cycle of renting and not being in your own place. So the government really, if they're going to help us, we need the help. So
That's a good place.
This is the program.
And the government always states and talks about housing starts. It's a very crucial part of our economy. Even though the self-help might be a small part of that, a house here and a house there, we say do it one at a time. Well, that's what we're doing with the self-help program, one at a time. And it does help the state of Maine and the economy that we're in here and the income levels that we have here in Maine.
By updating and putting.
Yes, and we get to know them, and they become great customers of ours. You know, we make our annual visit on the services of the boilers that we install, and any questions that they might have. And it's in my community, in my hometown. There's quite a few self-help, and those people are my neighbors, and they never would have had that opportunity to get that start if it wasn't for the self-help program.
Out there.
Well, a lot of times they're out there putting the siding on the house and painting and putting up interior doors, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they're doing now that I've been around the construction trade my whole life that I've never even been taught how to do. So it's encouraging to see them being able to do the things they're doing, and maybe down the road if a door needed replacement or something, they have the skills now, and maybe they don't own the tools that Community Concept owns, but at least they have the knowledge in their head and be able to fix their own house as they go along, which is encouraging. If you just buy a home, a lot of times you don't know how that window was installed, and they're holding up the windows and cranking up the staging and carrying shingles to the roof, so it's pretty encouraging to watch them all work together. And I'm sure there's issues at times, but I've never seen any of that where families didn't get along. But we're usually in later in the house after the roof is on, but again, it happens in my neighborhood, so I know a lot of the people that are involved in those projects.
Program?
Yes, I have. Again, my neighbors and stuff. I mean, when they're in a low, medium income, I would like to see maybe the income level go up a notch, because one of my employees is at that base where he would get into the self-help program, but he's just, maybe I pay him a little too much money, so he doesn't quite qualify for the program. But again, to have the equity that they have after the house has been built is a good start for them. You know, if they want to use their home as equity to borrow money for a car, at least they're not starting out at that brink point that they have no equity to borrow and get their lives going on other avenues. I mean, it's one thing to have a house and a house payment, but there's more to life than just that, and it's nice to see the equity that they have after they move in. Well, again, we're talking about the income levels that we have here in Maine are not maybe like it is throughout the United States. So this program is obviously an entry-level form of housing, and I think if the system wasn't there, I got my start with FHA, which is a similar program. So if it wasn't for FHA giving me that subsidized loan, I probably wouldn't be where I am today, owning my own business, and we're doing very well in our lives now. But if I didn't have that little jump to get me started, like I've been talking about, the equity that they have in their homes to go ahead and borrow money at a later date, and then they start putting a garage on, and it influences taxes in the town because you need a certain amount of growth. You need a certain amount of growth in town each year, and if you don't have that growth, then your tax base stays stale. So, I mean, it's definitely a trickle-down effect if we don't have these homes being built, allowing these people to get these starts, to broaden their lives, to be able to start businesses and do things like that. I mean, like I say, I compare myself to the self-help program, but it was in a different government program at the time, FHA. And it just gave me a good start. And then as you start getting a better job and you start getting on your feet better, yeah, you move up and you get a conventional bank loan, and you're on your way to your life. So it really is a great program for anybody starting out. It really is. It definitely gave me a start because I was working for a construction company making $5 an hour, and there was surplus money in this area with the FHA program. And as you know, a lot of times if they don't use it, then they don't replenish it the following year. So I had an opportunity with very minimal credit. I got in and I said, I'm going to make it work. And you see that in people's eyes, even when they're building the houses. You know, these people work all day long, and then they have their schedule to work on these self-help houses. And I mean, for a year, their lives are chaotic. They were doing their job, trying to earn their living and keep their family together. Then they go work on the self-help house a lot of evenings, a lot of weekends, a lot of times when they're probably not feeling so well, where you could just kind of blow it off if it wasn't your own home. But I mean, it's exciting to see it. And then at the end, when we have this spaghetti feed that all us contractors help kick in on, and you see how happy everybody is, and the kids are hollering and screaming, and everybody's having a good time, and it's just a festive time when we have that party at the end, and you see all these people, and you know how hard they work to get into this program, and I mean, there are some failures that don't seem to understand the opportunity that they were given, but I would say 9 out of 10 really appreciate the opportunity that they have. And if it wasn't for that, they'd be stuck in a rented apartment building somewhere, and it's so exciting to see them and watch them grow.